All right, guys, now with our obsessive detail and breakdown of the Detroit Lions' loss to the Philadelphia Eagles week 1, we can now shift our attention and stop talking about the Eagles for the rest of the season, hopefully, and we can look forward to our next opponent, the Washington COMMIES. And yes, I called them commies because just like your mom, they're a big red machine. Roll the intro.
Welcome to Detroit.
Welcome back to the channel, you guys. As you already know, I'm your host, Hat and Beard. We're discussing the Detroit Lions Week 2 matchup against the Washington Commies, where hopefully we can stop talking about how our over-aggressive defense ended up being our Achilles heel, because as we all know, Carson Wentz has 2 left feet and can't really move around so much. So hopefully the statue of Carson Wentz makes a nice easy target and a bit of a bounce back for our front seven's pressure, and maybe we can get Hutch in the stat sheet a little bit more, maybe get a sack, maybe half sack, maybe even 2 sacks. But look, man, I'm expecting good things out of our defense against Washington. I'm expecting good things out of our offense against Washington, namely because Washington's second-round pick a couple years ago, their hyper all-pro, all-world, everything defensive end, Chase Young, will miss this game because of injury. I think he's on the PUP list right now. But look, that benefits us because even though we have a dominant offensive line, we have seen in the past where Penei Sewell has allowed elite pass rushers to maybe get the better of him. I'm looking at week 3 against Pittsburgh in the preseason. So having one superstar out generally benefits everybody. I'm not saying that Washington's defense is completely washed. On the contrary, they actually have a relatively strong defense, and Riverboat Ron Rivera knows how to coach defense. He's a defensive-minded coach. And look, there'll still be competition there. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's just, I'm saying that with Chase Young being out, it'll be a nice, easier path to victory, shall we say. Maybe I won't have to watch Chase Young just absolutely murder Jared Goff. Maybe we can delay the inevitable dawning of the Nate Sudfeld in Detroit. There are 2 things on offense for the Washington Commies that I'm a little concerned about, and it's the same thing that happened last week. They have 2, you could argue they have 3 pretty good wide receivers, even though Curtis Samuel has had a bit of a down year since coming over from Carolina. You kind of thought that would be another hand and glove situation where he would be able to move right in and excel in Riverboat Ron Rivera's play style because, you know, Riverboat Ron drafted him when he was in Carolina. So you could say they have 3 strong wide receivers, but I'm really worried about Scary Terry and Jahan Dotson, the rookie who had 2 touchdown catches against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. Namely, with 2, who are you going to put on who? Are you going to put, Amani 2-4 just to shade Scary Terry McLaurin? Are you going to tell Jeff Okudah to just shadow Jahan Dotson all game long? Because, as I talked about in my last video, dude, Jeff Okudah had a great game against Devontae Smith last week again with the Eagles. So clearly Jeff Okudah can hang with these younger wide receivers. I think Jahan Dotson is a little bit faster than Devontae Smith. That's neither here nor there. Maybe Jeff Okudah was just having a really good game last week. Maybe he comes out and falls flat on his face. I'd like to hope not. I'm very, very hopeful that that's not the case, but I'm a little concerned because we're running into an A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith type situation where it's like if you eliminate one, well, then there's the other one. And that's something that we need to really focus in and sharpen our pencil on how to eliminate both wide receivers, because next week when we go against Minnesota, Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in the game right now. So, we need to really make sure that we've got it figured out on how to eliminate wide receivers. So this week, look for how we're going to scheme to phase out 1 elite and 1 very good wide receiver for the Washington Commies. We're going to turn our attention to the offensive side of the ball, and I realize that this is going to sound very mundane and kind of silly, but fundamentals. There's 2 things that we need to focus on Sunday against Washington. That is, number 1, we need to feed DeAndre Swift and Jay Willie early, and we need to feed Jay Willie and DeAndre Swift often, because our running game is going to be the catalyst in which we move the ball down the field the majority of the season. Our running backs are too good. Our offensive line is too good. Our scheme is designed to run the ball. So we need to run the ball early. We need to run the ball often. We need to pound it down their throats. So look for Jay Willie and DeAndre Swift to have lots of action. I would like to see maybe, look, I know you fantasy guys want to see DeAndre Swift get 60 to 85% of the backfield snaps. That's just not going to happen. DeAndre Swift isn't designed to operate that way. His build isn't meant to be that durable. We don't need to hand him the ball off that often when you have another starting caliber running back in Jay Willie. Jay Willie can handle a a predominant running back role, a lead back role workload. We just happen to have him as a spell back to DeAndre Swift. So we actually have a bounty of running backs, which is a good thing to have considering DeAndre Swift hasn't been able to maintain his health through the first 2 years of his career. All I'm saying is that we need to get out there. We need to hammer the rock. I'm not saying DeAndre Swift has to have 144 yards rushing. I'm not saying we need to elevate Jay Willie's rushing total. What I'm saying is that the amount of touches as well as the production needs to be there. The touches need to be there, and the production can't fall off too much. I'm not expecting him to rip off a 52-yard run in the second carry of the game. That'd be awesome, but if we can maintain Swifty getting shifty and producing 150 yards of total offense, that's rushing and receiving, and if we could elevate Jay Willie's numbers up to about 50 yards of production total on offense, then you'd have a nice balance between the two running backs. And you wouldn't have to really rely on the second part of the video, the second part of the offense that I want to talk about. That being, we've discussed it in the offensive breakdown, Jared Goff. Jared Goff cannot be rusty. Jared Goff cannot be the Tin Man. Jared Goff cannot be rusty. Jared Goff has to come out. Jared Goff has to be precise. He has to put his passes in positions where players can catch the ball. I can't have you throwing the ball 6 yards in front of Hawkinson and expect him to dive out and tip the ball back to himself. I can't have you just wildly overthrowing wide receivers in the back of the end zone, dude. We're not going to be able to miss out on these opportunities anymore. You know, as the season progresses, as teams get sharper, opportunities are going to become more and more important, more and more valuable. So we have to excel when we have the opportunity to put points on the board. So Jared Goff, I'm going to need you to go ahead and come out and look like a all-pro on Sunday because, as I said in the video earlier on in the week with my offensive breakdown, as Jared Goff goes, this is the way our team's going to go. So look, man, I know that we all are really high on the fact that we put up 35 points on the Eagles, but you got to understand, man, the Eagles took their foot off the gas, and just like week 1 against San Francisco last year, the Lions had to pull out a lot of stops. We had to get really, really aggressive. Roll the dice. Dan had to roll the dice a lot, i.e. kick the freaking onside kick that ended up screwing us over and putting us in a bad position. But hey, you know, that's things that we've talked about where Dan Campbell's going to have to learn when is the right time, when isn't the right time. Midway through the third quarter isn't the right time. But look,
wait a minute now there, friend. You weren't about to click off this video without liking and subscribing, were you? Come on, man. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy, dude. Just hit like and subscribe. Come on.
I don't expect us to go out and have to be into a track meet with the Washington Commies. I don't think they're as volatile as a team as the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think they have quite as good of a defense. They definitely don't have the offensive line, and their offensive weapons aren't as dynamic and explosive as the Philadelphia Eagles, but that's not to take away from the Washington Commies. I mean, they're a good team. Their record is better than ours. They beat Jacksonville, okay? They beat Jacksonville. We lost to Philadelphia. They are 1-0. We are 0-1. Technically, they are the better team with the winning record. So they are going to come in and give us a fight, but I would love for us to end up pulling this out, pulling the hat out of the bag. You know, it's actually pretty amazing that as long as the line doesn't move too much between now and Sunday, you guys, this is pretty awesome. For the first time in 24 games, that's a year and a half, for the first time in 24 games, the Detroit Lions head into the game as Vegas favorites by 2.5. So, hey, look, if we can maintain this, baby, Vegas knows what they're talking about, man. That's why they're Vegas, dude. That's why you bet against Vegas, because they know, man. They somehow have a little crystal ball that they rub and polish and look into. Look, man, Vegas knows. So Vegas knows something that's up. Look, the sharp money's on Detroit. I like the Lions to win. I expect us to cover the spread, and I expect Detroit to come out and win by one possession with a 31-24 beatdown of the Redskins. Oh, I'm sorry, of the Washington Commies. I'm not allowed to say the Washington Redskins because even though I was raised for 30-plus years knowing them as the Redskins, I still have a hard time trying to unprogram that title and call them the Washington Commies. But, you know, if the Commies are going to come out and put up 24 points, I think that's a palatable enough number for us to in the fourth quarter. You know, if in the fourth quarter we're squared up 24-24, I think that's when Roll the Dice Dan is able to outcoach Riverboat Ron Rivera and pull a hat out of his bag. And, you know, this is a W that I don't want to say we need to come out and get this W, but we open the division next week against Minnesota, so we need to get a W on the board, you guys. We can't be rolling into Minnesota 0-2, and I think some of you might already know this, but statistically speaking, most teams, when they fall to 0-2, don't end up making the playoffs. I know. I'm not expecting us to make the playoffs. I'm just saying, for conversational standpoint, that when you start the season off 0-2, you tend to have a crap season. So let's right this shit, boys. Let's turn it around. Let's get to 1-1. Let's Motor City Dan Campbell. Let's roll the dice, Dan. Take it to Riverboat Ron Rivera and the Washington Commies. Because first of all, I don't like communists. Secondly, I don't like Carson Wentz. So when you have a communist Carson Wentz, Hattenbeard's going to be a very unhappy person. That's going to do it for me, boys. I've been Hattenbeard. You've been an attentive audience. We'll catch you guys in the next one. We'll see you next week. Go Lions. Peace.
What the hell is that? What is your motto here?